My name is Maria, and I live in Austin, Texas. Life hasn't always been easy, but I've had my mom, Karen, by my side through everything. When I was 6 years old, my dad passed away unexpectedly. Losing him was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced as a child, and it left a gaping hole in our small family. My mom stepped up in ways I can never fully explain. She worked tirelessly, sometimes taking on 2 or 3 jobs, just to make sure I had what I needed: food, clothes, and even some little luxuries to make me feel normal. She was my hero, and for a long time, it was just the two of us against the world. Then, when I was 13, my mom met Michael. He seemed like a dream at first, kind, attentive, and so good to my mom. He even treated me well, showering me with compliments and little gifts. I remember thinking how lucky we were to have him in our lives. My mom deserved to be happy, and for a while, I believe Michael was the one who could give her that happiness. But things changed. A year or so after they got married, Michael started to show a different side of himself, at least to me. He began insisting I take on part-time jobs, saying it was to teach me responsibility. At first, I didn't mind. I wanted to contribute. But then he started demanding the money I earned. He'd come up with excuses: bills, groceries, things he claimed were for the family. But I knew it wasn't true. I'd see him buying expensive gadgets for himself while my mom and I lived modestly. I didn't tell my mom. I couldn't. She looked so happy, and after everything she'd sacrificed for me, I didn't want to be the one to shatter that. So I kept quiet and handed over the money he asked for, telling myself it was just temporary. But as the years went on, his demands grew, and so did my resentment. It happened on a Friday evening, a day I'll never forget. I had just finished a big freelance project, a web design job for a small local business. It wasn't my first project, but it was one I was particularly proud of. I'd spent weeks pouring my energy into it, balancing it alongside my classes and part-time work. When I received the payment, I felt a surge of pride. I finally had enough saved to buy a better laptop, something I desperately needed for both school and work. I tucked the money safely into my drawer, promising myself I'd go shopping the next day. That night, Michael came home from work. He looked tired and irritable, which wasn't unusual. He called me into the living room after dinner. My mom had already gone to bed, exhausted from her long day. I could tell something was off by the way Michael was pacing. "Maria," he said, his voice sharp, "I need some cash. Now." I froze. "I don't have any extra right now," I lied, trying to avoid conflict. "Don't play games with me," he snapped, stepping closer. "I know you got paid for that job. Hand it over." My heart raced. How did he even know about my freelance work? I stared at him, stunned by his demand. "That money is for my laptop," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I worked hard for it, Michael. I can't just." Before I could finish, his face twisted with anger. "Don't you dare talk back to me like that," he growled. "You live under this roof, you owe me." Something inside me snapped. For years, I had given in to his demands, handing over my hard-earned money just to keep the peace. But this time was different. This money was mine. Every late night, every skipped outing with friends, every hour I'd spent earning it, it was all mine. "No," I said firmly, crossing my arms. "I'm not giving you my savings." His eyes darkened, and before I could react, his hand shot out, striking me across the face. The force of it sent me stumbling back, my cheek burning with pain and shock. I couldn't believe it, he had actually hit me. Tears welled up in my eyes, but they weren't just from the pain. They were from years of frustration, anger, and the realization that I couldn't keep this secret anymore. "What's going on?" My mom's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stood in the doorway, her face pale with shock. She must have heard the commotion from her room. "Karen, stay out of this," Michael said, his voice shaking as he tried to regain control. But my mom wasn't having it. She rushed to my side, her eyes darting between my tear-streaked face and Michael. "What did you do to her?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fury. "She's disrespecting me, Karen," Michael stammered. "I just—" "Get out," my mom interrupted, her voice ice-cold. "What?" Michael's bravado faltered. "I said, get out of my house," she repeated, stepping closer to him. "You think you can lay a hand on my daughter and stay here? No, pack your things and leave. Now." Michael tried to argue, tried to explain, but my mom wasn't listening. She was done. She turned to me, gently touching my cheek. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, though my voice caught in my throat. "Go to your room," she said. "I'll handle this." I didn't argue. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear my mom's voice, firm and unyielding, as she made it clear that Michael was no longer welcome in our lives. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't over yet, but something had shifted. My mom saw the truth, and she chose me. She chose us. And that was enough to give me the strength to move forward. A few days after Michael left, life felt lighter, freer. My mom and I were finally beginning to settle into a new rhythm without him. The tension that had lingered in the house for years had evaporated, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. Then my birthday came around, a day that was supposed to be about celebration and fresh starts. My mom had planned a small gathering with a few close friends and family. It was nothing extravagant, just a cozy dinner at home with people who cared about me. I was genuinely excited, ready to celebrate this new chapter of my life. The evening started beautifully. My mom cooked my favorite dishes, and a few friends brought a cake. The house was filled with laughter, the kind that had been absent for far too long. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But then the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, thinking it was another friend arriving late. But when I opened the door, my heart dropped. There he was, Michael. He looked disheveled, his eyes darting nervously as he clutched a bouquet of wilted flowers. "Maria," he said, his voice unusually soft, almost pleading. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice firm but shaky. "Please just let me talk to your mom," he said, glancing over my shoulder. "I need to see her." "No," I said, standing my ground. "You shouldn't be here." The commotion drew my mom to the door. The moment she saw Michael, her face hardened. "What do you want?" she asked coldly, stepping protectively beside me. "Karen, please," Michael began, his voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I messed up. I need you. I need us." His sudden vulnerability felt rehearsed, insincere. My mom didn't flinch. "You hurt my daughter," she said, her voice steady. "There's no coming back from that, Michael." "Karen, please," he begged, his tone growing desperate. I was angry. I wasn't thinking straight. "I'm sorry. Just give me another chance." I could feel my chest tighten as he spoke. For a brief second, I worried my mom might give in. She had always been forgiving, always wanting to see the best in people. But then she turned to me, and the look in her eyes was unshakable. "You don't get to come back here," she said, her voice rising. "You don't get to hurt my daughter and think you can fix it with an apology. We are done, Michael. Leave." "Karen, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I have nowhere else to go." "Not my problem," my mom snapped. "You made your choices, Michael. Now live with them." When he didn't move, my mom stepped forward, her tone sharp as steel. "If you don't leave right now, I will call the police. This is Maria's birthday, and you have no place here." Michael's face fell. He looked at me, then back at my mom, as if searching for some sliver of hope. But he found none. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As the door closed behind him, I felt a weight lift from my chest. My mom pulled me into a tight hug, her hand resting on my back. "I'm so sorry you ever had to go through that," she whispered. "But I promise you, he's gone for good." In that moment, I realized just how much my mom loved me, how far she was willing to go to protect me. Michael was out of our lives, and I finally felt safe. More than that, I felt seen. For the first time in years, I knew we were truly a team. After that night, it was like a new chapter had finally begun. Michael was gone for good, and my mom and I could focus on rebuilding our lives together. The house felt different, lighter, warmer, and safe. I didn't realize just how much tension I had been carrying until it wasn't there anymore. The first thing I did was buy the laptop I'd been saving for. It wasn't just a purchase. It was a symbol of my hard work and the life I was building for myself, free from anyone else's control. Sitting at my desk that evening, setting it up, I felt a surge of pride. That laptop represented my independence, my ability to stand up for myself, and my future. My mom and I grew closer than ever after that. We talked more about Michael, about the years we both silently endured his manipulation, and about how we wouldn't let anyone else take advantage of us again. Those conversations were hard, but they were healing. My birthday, despite the chaos Michael brought to it, became a turning point. My friends stayed late that night, filling the house with laughter and support. One of them even joked, "This is the best kick out the toxic guy party ever." We all laughed, and it felt good to find humor in what had once felt so heavy. As the weeks turned into months, my life began to take on a new rhythm. I threw myself into my freelance work, taking on more projects that challenged and excited me. I even started teaching myself new skills, thinking about turning my side hustle into a full-time business one day. My mom, too, found new strength. She joined a support group for single parents, reconnecting with old friends and finding a sense of community. Watching her smile and laugh again was the best gift I could have asked for. There were still moments of doubt, of course, fleeting thoughts about what could have been or worries about the future. But those moments didn't last long. Each time, I reminded myself of how far we'd come, of the strength we found in each other. One sunny afternoon, my mom and I decided to repaint the living room. It had been Michael's favorite room, and we wanted to reclaim it as ours. We picked out a bright, cheerful yellow and spent the day laughing and talking as we worked. By the time we were done, the room felt like a reflection of us, vibrant, strong, and full of life. Now, every time I walk into that room, I feel a sense of pride, not just in the fresh paint or the new decor, but in the life my mom and I have rebuilt together. Michael may have taken years from us, but he didn't take our spirit. We're stronger now, not because of him, but despite him. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited for the future, my future. I've learned to stand up for myself, to value my worth, and to embrace the love and support of those who truly care about me. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine, and that's more than enough.